Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most controversial executions of 2025, the final 24 hours of Demetrius Frazier. This case isn't just about his crimes, it's about a broken legal system, a questionable execution method, and final words that will shock you. We're talking about nitrogen hypoxia, inadequate legal defense, and a man who spent his last moments claiming innocence for one murder while apologizing for another. If you think you know everything about capital punishment, think again. This case will challenge everything you believe about justice in America. So grab a coffee, settle in, and let's unpack this incredibly complex story together. The man behind the headlines. Let me paint you a picture of Demetrius Frazier. Born October 29, 1972, executed February 6, 2025. That's a 52-year journey that ended in Alabama's execution chamber. But here's where it gets complicated, folks. This wasn't just any ordinary death row case. Frazier was convicted of crimes in two different states, Alabama and Michigan. And here's the kicker. Michigan abolished the death penalty back in 1963, while Alabama, well, they're still very much in the execution business. This geographical lottery literally determined whether Frazier lived or died. The primary crime that sent him to death row? The 1991 rape and murder of 40-year-old Pauline Brown in Alabama. But wait, there's more. In Michigan, he was serving multiple life sentences for the 1992 murder of 14-year-old Crystal Kendrick, plus several other sexual assaults and robberies. Here's what's absolutely mind-blowing. Frazier spent 18 years in a Michigan prison before being transferred to Alabama's death row in 2011. Imagine serving nearly 2 decades, thinking you'll die in prison, naturally, then suddenly facing execution. Talk about a plot twist nobody wants. The defense that never was. Now, let's talk about something that'll make your blood boil, Frazier's legal representation, or lack thereof. His court-appointed lawyers in Alabama were paid a maximum of $1,000 for out-of-court trial preparation. That's $20 per hour, folks. I've seen people spend more money on their morning Starbucks habit in a month than what these lawyers got paid to save a man's life. This financial constraint meant his lawyers met with him only a few times before trial. They called 0 defense witnesses. 0. During the penalty phase, the part where they're supposed to convince the jury not to kill their client, it lasted only 45 minutes. 45 minutes to decide if someone lives or dies. But here's the tragic part. Frazier's lawyers told the jury he had no family, no background worth mentioning. This was completely false. Later investigations revealed he had a large family willing to testify, a childhood filled with extreme poverty, developmental issues, and serious mental illness. None of this was presented to the jury. The jury still wasn't unanimous. They voted 10-2 for death. In most states, that wouldn't be enough. But Alabama, they were perfectly fine with non-unanimous death verdicts back then. The controversial confession. Here's where the story gets even more twisted. Frazier claimed his confessions to both murders were false and obtained through deception. He alleged that Detroit homicide detective Monica Childs tricked him into confessing by promising he wouldn't be sent back to Alabama to face the death penalty. Think about it. You're facing charges in 2 states. One has no death penalty, the other does. A detective allegedly promises you'll stay in a non-death penalty state if you confess. What would you do? It's like choosing between life in prison and potentially losing your life entirely. Frazier maintained this claim until his very last breath. Even in his final statement, he continued to try to expose what he believed was a false confession. Whether you believe him or not, it raises serious questions about how confessions are obtained when multiple jurisdictions are involved. Before we continue with Frazier's final hours, if this case is opening your eyes to the complexities of our justice system, as it did mine, please hit the like button. And if you want more deep dives into controversial cases like this, subscribe and ring that notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next in this series. The final 24 hours begin. January 7th, 2025, Alabama Governor Kay Ivey signs Frazier's death warrant. Execution date, February 6th, 2025, with a 30-hour window starting at midnight. The method, nitrogen hypoxia, a controversial technique that Alabama pioneered. On his final Wednesday, Frazier had 2 visitors and made 1 phone call. Thursday, execution day, 7 visitors and 1 final phone call. You can imagine the emotional weight of those conversations. His last meal choice tells a story too. Frazier refused breakfast and lunch entirely. For his final dinner, burritos, chicken chalupa, tacos, chips and dip, and Mountain Dew. Comfort food, Mexican cuisine. It may have reminded him of better times, or he simply craved familiar flavors in his final hours. The final statement that shocked everyone. After the warden read his death warrant, Frazier delivered one of the most complex final statements I've ever heard. He started with an apology. First of all, I want to apologize to the family and friends of Pauline Brown. What happened to Pauline Brown should have never happened. Genuine remorse, accountability. But then, he used his final platform to maintain his innocence in the Michigan murder, instructing the media to contact a former Detroit Police Department detective about his allegedly false confession. Even facing death, he continued to fight for his version of the truth. He ended with, "Detroit strong. I love everybody on death row. Let's go." And he criticized Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer for not intervening to return him to Michigan to serve his life sentence there. Those final words encapsulated everything: remorse, defiance, love for fellow inmates, and frustration with the system that transferred him from a non-death penalty state to his execution. The nitrogen hypoxia execution. At 6:10 p.m. CST, February 6, 2025, Demetrius Frazier became the 4th person executed by nitrogen hypoxia in Alabama. This method involves breathing pure nitrogen gas, causing hypoxia, essentially suffocating the person by replacing oxygen with nitrogen. Alabama claims it's humane and effective. The United Nations says it's prohibited under international law. The witness accounts? They tell a different story. Here's what media witnesses observed. 6:11 p.m. Frazier started waving his hands in circles toward his body for about a minute. 6:12 p.m. He grimaced, quivered on the gurney, and took gasping breaths. 6:13 p.m. Raised both legs several inches off the gurney, then lowered them. His face clenched, nostrils flared, hands quivered. He appeared to say something inaudible. His head rolled to the right side. Sporadic gasping and shallow breathing continued until about 6:20 p.m. The nitrogen gas flowed for about 8 minutes. Officials claimed he lost consciousness when his hands stopped swirling, but witnesses observed movement for the entire 8-minute period. The curtains closed at 6:29 p.m. Frazier was pronounced dead at 6:36 p.m. The aftermath and controversy. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey refused clemency. Attorney General Steve Marshall called the execution fair and appropriate and maintained that nitrogen hypoxia is humane and effective. But those witness accounts paint a very different picture. Grimacing, quivering, gasping, leg movements. Does that sound humane to you? Frazier's lawyers had argued this violated the Eighth Amendment's prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment, citing similar distressing reactions from the 3 previous nitrogen executions. I guess humane and effective means different things to different people. Kind of like how 5 minutes means different things to your spouse when you're waiting in the car. The state emphasized that Frazier had chosen nitrogen hypoxia back in 2018. But here's the thing. He was actively fighting against it in federal court right up until his execution, specifically because of what witnesses had observed in previous nitrogen executions. So here we are, folks. Demetrius Frazier's case isn't just about one man's crimes or his execution. It's a mirror reflecting the deep flaws in our capital punishment system. We've got inadequate legal representation due to pathetic compensation rates, non-unanimous jury verdicts that most states have abandoned, questionable confession methods, and an execution technique that international bodies condemn. The big question is, does this case make you more supportive of capital punishment reform, or do you think the system worked as intended? And what about the nitrogen hypoxia method? Is it a more humane alternative, or are we just finding new ways to inflict suffering? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This is exactly the kind of complex case that deserves serious discussion. If this deep dive opened your eyes to issues you hadn't considered before, please hit that like button and subscribe for more investigative content like this. Speaking of which, next week we're diving into another controversial case where we'll explore electric chair executions and how they compare to nitrogen hypoxia. You definitely don't want to miss that one, so be sure to subscribe to notifications. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.